I know exactly why you struggle with your life. And before we get into that, let me warn you that aside from this intending to be raw and unfiltered, that what you see, you cannot unsee. And what you are not seeing is you. You can't be, because if you did, if you really looked at you, I'm talking about really looked at you, you wouldn't let yourself be whatever you're being that you don't really want to be. I cried to myself yesterday, and it's been about a good 6 months since I've done that. I think it's a very liberating exercise. I think you should do that in your own privacy because there is a level of self-consciousness tied to that and associated with it. I think you actually have to learn to cry. It's not the first time I've done it. It's certainly an iterative and evolutionary process, but it occurs every so often as I continue my journey and my evolution of self. And the reason why I come to these moments is that the more I continue to be who I believe I want to be, who I am not, always comes up for a quick hello. So let me assure you that before I get into the power of what you resist persists and what you look at goes away, and that you need to take a good look at yourself, but again, be warned, once you see, you cannot unsee. That my moments of self-vulnerability, self-release, and the liberation that comes with crying it out has everything to do with the fact that inside of me, I know I can be manipulative, I can be conniving, I can be selfish, I can be jealous, I can be envious, I can be angry, I can be enraged, I can be scared, I can be weak, I can be all those things because I am all those things. And in order to ensure that I'm becoming and being who I feel like is the core of me in my soul, then there's a process that requires you not to renounce any of those things, not to dismiss, not to suppress, but realize that those things are you, have been you, and will always be you. And the difference between ensuring the life you see for yourself and the life you no longer really want to live that you're hiding from is simply to make the decision not to. I know what I can be. I know what I have been. I know what I am capable of. I don't run from it. I don't let that be the totality of what I am. I don't let it influence my behaviors because I know it's there and I'm accepting of that. And the reason I was able to reach this conclusion has everything to do with what you resist persists and what you look at will go away. Because once you see, you cannot unsee. So what do you see when you look at yourself? What have you allowed yourself to become? What are you currently being? What is your demonstration and presentation of your life to the world? This is beyond belief. This is beyond social status. This is beyond any sort of loyalty and patriotism to whatever it is you're loyal and patriotic about, to whatever it is you're faithful to the fact that you pray or don't. What have you allowed yourself to become? And what are you resisting in the process? So ask yourself, just ask yourself, who are you really? And watch how you begin to define yourself. Watch how you start with identifying as things that have nothing to do with you as you, inclusive of spouse, children, profession, house, car, community, parents, religion, faith. What is that? Is that you? And what do you believe about any of those things and why? How has that and how is that shaping you? And then how is that also preventing you from actually seeing what you are? None of those things should be defining you. But as you come to those conclusions as to what you have, you will also find yourself identifying with what you don't have, and now thereby creating conflict between gaps and delta, because you get a little self-conscious that, well, who am I really? If I'm none of these things, then what am I? Because I have to define as something, and it has to be successful. It has to look good. It has to check all the boxes. It has to maybe get me into heaven based off some commandments that I think I believe for whatever reason I believe them, for whatever happened to me as I was growing up. Speaking of which, of course, everything that you lack that isn't presented, that you can't show for yourself, has nothing to do with you. We know what's in the dark. It was because of how we were raised. It was because what we were exposed to. It is because how we were or weren't given the proper love. It is because we had these traumatic and dark experiences. It is because I wasn't really given the biggest pedestal. It was because I didn't have a silver spoon. What does that have to do with you right now? It has nothing to do with you. It is you, which is why I cry it out. Yeah, I've been there. I come from an environment that wasn't the greatest. You wouldn't, like you, let's get over this. Let's say it and get over this. No one really has that much of a storybook life from the perspective of you aren't just all roses and flowers and peachy. And any story that's of value that gives you all the warm and fuzzies never starts that way anyway. We all have our generational plagues. We all have our differences. We all have our drawbacks. We all have our insecurities. We all have the reasons that we can testify to as to why not. But then again, I simply ask you, who are you then? And furthermore, if that's really who you think you're about, what are you doing about it? Are you just going to rinse, repeat, copy, paste for the rest of your life? There's no way. This is what this comes down to. I've been saying it. I'll repeat it. This is what the quote unquote directive and words of encouragement would be. When you really look at you and you really see what you need to see, and you realize that there's a discomfort in yourself, about yourself, for yourself, because you probably don't even feel good about looking in the mirror at yourself. When you can work through that, when you can come to steadiness and presence about that, when you can realize that you can be whatever you want to be, inclusive of the worst version of yourself. Resist not temptation. Life is just that. The temptation to either do or not do. To be defined by or to become. There's always a choice and an option. And if you can look long enough, then what you resist will stop persisting, and what you look at will go away. And everything about what you think you can't become, because of everything you've been, the dirty, dark, almost unfathomable you that keeps you uneasy and queasy about being something different and better, it will just go away. You don't need to resist it. You don't need to pretend as if it's not true. You don't need to behave as if it's not a possibility. To judge and to condemn simply puts you in a rhythm and pattern of identifying with what you judge and condemn. Accept it. Accept that you can be all these things. Accept that society is going to offer you all of these lush perceived luxuries around comfort and relaxation and immediate and instant stimulation. It's not going away. Just know this. You cannot unsee what you see. And for you not to take a look at what you are being puts you at risk of becoming or continuing along the path of the weakest, most ignorant, self-centered, self-loathing, incompetent, incomprehensible version of yourself that you could be. And the worst part about it is you would never know the difference. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Stay rich.